The following content is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition.
Hello, everybody. My name is Marina Sprocki, and welcome to Always Another Way podcast. I have a master's in professional counseling. I am the IPPY award-winning author of Stop Looking for a Husband, Find the Love of Your Life, and Nasty Divorce, A Kid's Eye View. I write positive divorce advice for the HuffPost, and I'm trained in clinical hypnosis. And this podcast speaks to out-of-the-box thinkers, and it's for those who hear the call of hope and always another way. And if you're very rigid and set in your beliefs, this is probably not your cup of tea. However, you should note, tastes can and do change. And today we have a topic that I've never talked about on the show, and it's one that I don't think very many people talk about at all. We are going to talk about widow wellness. And I'm sure some of you, maybe like me, when you think of widow, the image that just pops in your head is an old woman or an elderly woman. But that is not true, because widows happen at any age from 20s on up. And that being said, death is something else that we very rarely talk about. I do have a podcast a while back with Danielle Thornton on a death doula, which is very interesting if you want to listen to that part of the experience. But what we're going to talk about today is, what does someone do when you lose a spouse? There are so many things that go around it, things that you don't know. And maybe you have a friend or a family member, or maybe it's you, and you're going through it, and you don't know about these things. But I just think topics like these are so important to talk about. I know myself, I was always very afraid of death. I would avoid it. I mean, I guess I'm avoiding it like the plague, not dying. But when somebody died, I was just very fearful. I didn't want to talk to them about it, because in my head, I was going to make them upset. I didn't know what to say or how to handle it. Other people's crying made me uncomfortable. I just didn't know how to deal, which then leaves really the person isolated, because there's a bunch of people that don't know how to deal. You've got this stress over here, and everybody's, playing keep away because they don't know how to deal. And I think we're really doing everybody a disservice with that. But I have a guest today that is going to shed light to this subject and just flood us with all sorts of wonderful information so that we can be better people to our friends who've lost loved ones. So Kirsten Joy Burch started her professional career as a medical assistant and an office nurse in Dallas and Denton. She ran business operations for a large hospice in Missouri, and then came back to Dallas for a career in finance and sales operations in the software industry during the booming late 90s. And a wave of death came into her life around 2011. She lost her stepdad, her godfather, and father from emphysema, pneumonia, and small cell carcinoma. And then 2 months after her father died in her arms, her husband developed brain cancer, and he was just 40. She quit her corporate job to become his caregiver. Counseling and yoga therapy was her tool to stay functional, and a short while after her husband passed away, she began a 26-month intensive studying of the science and philosophy behind why yoga was working so well for her. She was healing and regaining mental capacity steadily. Kirsten studied para-yoga with Rod Stryker and was initiated into the tradition in October 2014. She's continued her studies in para-yoga and her Ayurveda lifestyle counselor certification in 2015 with Arpita Shah of the Om Yoga Journey, and she has certifications in yoga for cancer and yoga for anxiety and depression. Kirsten leverages yoga as medicine, and that it is, and teaches traditional yoga and Ayurveda meditation and yoga nidra. And we're going to put all the information, so at the end of the show, you can contact Kirsten if you want to get a hold of her for her services. But I just want to welcome you to the show, you wonderful being.
Thank you so much, Marina. It's good to be here today.
Yeah, and this is just like, I mean, whoa, heavy topic, like bring it to us so we can make people just less afraid about talking about this stuff, and that we can really, bring people into our fold that have this happen to, rather than alienate because we're scared. So, you just, man, a rough journey.
Yeah, it was a tough deal, and to your point, when you think about widow, in fact, as soon as it happened to me, I Googled widow because, of course, it's an identity crisis. Who am I now?
Yeah.
What's this new label that's been put on me? And I saw two things. I saw old women wearing black with the little hats and the little veils, hunched over with their canes, and I saw Scarlett Johansson.
Interesting.
The Marvel superhero.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right? So either the Black Widow or this old lady.
Yeah.
Right? And I thought to myself, well, I'm a modern widow. I'm in my 40s.
Yeah.
This is not me. Why are we treating women like this? Why is this happening?
Yeah.
And you read who all died in my life, and so I felt very isolated. I felt very alone.
And just dealing with grief like itself.
It's massive.
Yeah.
It's massive. And I couldn't turn to my godmother because she had just lost her husband. I couldn't turn to my mom, right? I couldn't turn to any of my steps because obviously they had also lost their husband right after I lost my husband. So it's like trying to find a brand new demographic of people who understand you and that you can talk to, because you are completely devastated. So I was scattered, devastated, shattered. I mean, there aren't any words for what happens. There really aren't.
Can't even imagine.
No.
Yeah.
And you don't think about it, right? Because you're just tootling along in your life, and widows come in all shapes and sizes at all ages.
And nobody thinks, like, or at least, I mean, most of us, I know I feel like I'm invincible, you know what I mean? And then you hear somebody, like, I'll hear somebody that dies in their 30s or anywhere close to my age, and you're like, what? Like, how did that happen?
Right.
Because you're not supposed to.
Right. I think the way that we live right now, we live in such a life where we're racing to the finish line, if you will. We're hurrying to our death because we're working so hard, and we think, it can't happen to me. Look at me. I'm young. I'm eating fairly well. I'm doing my Pilates, and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'll be fine. But now looking back on it, we had symptoms, of just general burnout. But we didn't heed the warning because we were making a lot of money. We were working really hard to reach that end goal of retirement, so we could have those amazing vacations and sit on the porch, and boom, that just didn't happen.
Wow.
That just didn't happen. Yeah.
So what did you do? You just found yourself here, and then what was it? I mean, other than just devastating, what were you doing? What was it like? What were all the things kind of going on with you?
Well, in yoga science, Patanjali talks about 5 different states of mind: stupefied, distracted, disturbed, one-pointed, and absorbed, or in meditation. And I was literally stupefied. Those times when you're so angry you can't see straight, and you're grieving so much you're choked up, and you're green with jealousy, and you're so in love, you're not getting anything done. Well, death does that to you. It really melts your mind. Wow. And so now in this state of deep grief, you've lost your identity. Doctors tell us that the nervous system is hugely impacted by this loss, by the grief. Your emotional landscape is a complete mess. And what studies show us and what doctors are telling us now is within 30 days of losing a spouse, there's a high likelihood that you're going to have a stroke or a heart attack.
Wow, that's how big stress plays on your body.
Well, if we look at the number one stressor on the list that the Medical Association put up, loss of a spouse is number one.
Yeah.
And yet we don't have a plan or a program for that. We kind of ignore that, right? That's not happening right now. That's just for old people.
And it just puts the second person up in that higher risk because you can die of a heart attack. You know what I mean? Another one.
So really the question is, who's watching out for the widows?
You.
Me. Right. So for the first 4 months, it was very strange, but I couldn't eat solid food. I had no desire to put on pants. They actually irritated my skin. I can't even explain that one.
Yeah.
So I wasn't eating. I wasn't wearing clothes. I couldn't drive to the grocery store 2 blocks away without assistance from my Mapsco, from Google Maps.
Oh, and I'm sure that's what just super stress and trauma will make you like super brain fog.
And that's what they call it. They call it widow neurology or widow's fog. And depending on the industry that you're in, it really super impacts you. I couldn't go back to work. Of course, I had retired to take care of my husband, so I didn't have a job anymore.
Yeah, and then no spouse, no other income.
You know,
Add some stress to that pile.
so widows lose their health insurance.
Oh, yeah.
They lose half of their income, and they gain double responsibility by taking care of the legal estate, managing their husband's businesses and accounts, doing the kids all by themselves now if you have kids, right? So age 20, age 30, age 40, age 50, different set of responsibilities for those widows.
Right.
And we're not looking at that. We're not looking at how to help their nervous system, how to get their mental state back into a situation where they can make these important decisions with a clear mind.
Right. Because sometimes you just can't stop. If something's happened, you lose a spouse, and then you've got kids and things to do and whatever, you know.
So how do you recover? When do you take time to recover? Because you're not given that opportunity. There's a lot to do.
Wow. So how did you kind of like start to like peek your way out of that, or how long were you in there for?
Well, I'm at 5 years, a little over 5 years now since I lost my husband. The first 6 months were just, I gave myself permission to flounder. And that was really nice. That was really important to be able to have fortunately, we had some life insurance that funded me and my recovery through that first couple of years. I learned how to feed myself again. I learned how to just take care of me. The first 6 months, you just don't sleep. You just don't sleep.
Yeah.
So what do you do with all that time? You know you're going to be awake for 24 hours and you're in so much pain.
Wow.
And you can't eat and you can't sit still and there's no one to talk to.
And then the combination of sleep deprivation, and we talked about this a little bit before, is the permission to do that, and that you knew that you could give yourself permission to that. But I know a lot of people just are like, well, I cannot break down, because it's either it feels weak or it feels like I just can't. But really, I mean, if there's ever a reason, that would be one.
I consider my recovery a little bit of a luxury.
Yeah.
Because I had a little bit of money and I didn't have children. If I had to go immediately back to work and take care of my young kids, my babies or my teenage kids that I was trying to put through college, I wouldn't have been able to find the tools and the community and the therapies that helped me get to where I am today.
Wow.
So who's watching out for the widows?
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty scary, because there's a lot, you know.
Right.
A lot. People die every day. Many.
Every marriage, as you know, ends in divorce or death.
Right.
So why aren't we thinking about this? Why can't we talk about this? Why don't we have a support system for this?
Yeah, and I wonder, is it just like scary wrapped around the death, or what has your experience been like? How do people treat you, like when this happened? How, you know, the people that just knew you from work or friends or around? What was the?
It was interesting. That first year, you're on a spotlight. You're on the stage. Everyone's watching. How's she doing? How's she recovering? What's going on? They'll reach out to you every now and then. They'll send you texts on his birthday or your anniversary just to remind you of your loss, because they're experiencing that loss as well, and they're thinking about you, but it's a sweet pain when they text you and say, I'm thinking about you today, because remember your husband died today.
Yeah.
Right? It's always a calendar reminder. Yeah. And after that first year, people kind of lose interest and they move on and they expect you to be over it. And then by year 3, sometime you wake up and you look back and you say, was that all a dream?
Wow.
What just happened to me?
Yeah.
And then eventually your mind starts to recover and reading comprehension comes back and you start contributing to society again, and people expect you to be the same person that you were, but you're not. Grief changes you.
Of course.
Completely, grief changes you.
Yeah, and let me just ask real quickly. So with that, because I told you about it before, like I never knew what to say to people. Like I was told, just say you're sorry, and just or maybe bring up something. But what would you, like in hindsight now, if you've been through that, and then just for people listening, that if they glean anything, maybe it's not them, but they're like, oh, I know somebody that this happened to. What's a good thing to say to somebody or do?
Sit down and look them in the eye and listen.
Okay.
You know, if you have their consent or if they're close to you, put your hand on their hand or on their shoulder or on their arm and let them know that you're there, because they've lost half of themselves.
Right.
No one's touching them, no one's watching them, no one's caring for them, no one's loving them. So let them know you are loved. That's all you have to say, is you are so loved.
Oh, nice.
Because you telling me that you're sorry for my loss, and that's a nice thing to say, and that's what we've been taught to say, but really, what are you sorry? Well, why are you sorry? You know, just let me know I'm okay. Let me know I'm loved. Let me know you see me
Yeah.
And you feel me. And don't tell me your story and about how your story is similar, because I can't hear that right now.
Right.
You know, I just need your support.
I love that.
I need you to offer to feed me.
Uh-huh.
I need you to offer to take me out on Sunday and maybe go to the park. Oh, I have a boat. Let's go out on the boat this weekend. Let me spend time with you. Not how can I help, because that puts it in their court to ask you for help, but offer, let me bring you a breakfast taco Saturday. How about that?
Okay. So offering, so you are, change, I'm sorry. You are loved. Ask permission for a physical touch. And then just think of something to do and offer without asking.
Yeah.
But ask permission, like, can I bring you lunch? Can I do this? Rather than what do you want? Think of something that you know the person, you know stuff they like, and do it.
Yeah, because they've lost their best friend
Yeah.
and they need someone to commune with.
And then you think you like being with people better than being alone?
Not at
That time?
first.
Not at first.
Not at first, because you're crying all the time. And everyone that you see, you have pain with because you remember who you were when you were with them. So a common thing for widows is we try to go back to our old set of friends, but we're not a couple anymore.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's awkward,
That
right?
dynamic too.
Ooh, so those couples dinners don't really work anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Those couples dates don't work. So we find new friends, which is hard because that's not safe.
Yeah.
Because we're going through a lot of hypersensitivity, a lot of reaction for fear, because it is a PTSD.
Yeah, for
When you
sure.
ask someone with PTSD to go find new friends, it's not really easy.
Yeah.
It's not really easy. So you lean into the oldies but goodies that you truly trust, and the ones who are true friends bubble up to the top.
Yeah.
They stay with you.
That's true. Well, let's talk more about what happens in the body. Let's go with
Okay.
that. And PTSD seems the obvious one.
So, think about
Yeah.
PTSD. You've got terror visions. So, for example, my husband was sick for 20 months.
Oh, my.
So he had brain cancer. So I watched him deteriorate for a prolonged period of time. So that was prolonged anxiety and stress. And then when he died in
And
my
traumatic
arms.
to watch someone you love deteriorate. And yeah, for
And
sure.
he lost his short-term memory, and so he couldn't say your name, but he knew who you were. And I had to set the expectation with his family and friends of, here's our new normal today.
Yeah, wow.
Right, and that was really difficult. So it was very challenging for me. And so those terror visions of losing him and when he was sick and who he used to be was really big. You think about that fear. We feel very victimized, and we search for someone to come save us.
Yeah.
And that creates difficult situations too, because if you don't have a trusted resource, there are actually people out there who kind of stalk the widows, the creepers and stalkers who are looking for a nurse, a purse, or a mommy, or a therapist.
Wow.
And you make a really easy target because look at you, you're all by yourself and you really need something.
Wow.
So
And extra creepy. I'm sorry. People that prey on people already, just preying on people is bad, but people that are already in a down situation, extra creeps.
yeah, well,
Just
we're
throwing that
we're
in there.
super weak,
Yeah.
but we want to be strong, so we put on that front, and it's really easy to be taken advantage of. So, having a network that can look at that and let you know maybe that's not in your best interest.
Wow.
We think about the addictive behavior that happens. So whether that is shopping, we call it retail therapy, don't we? So shopping, emotional eating, sex, and think about the addiction to work. If I constantly work, then I don't have to think about that. If I constantly go on vacation, I don't have to think about that. So there's a certain avoidance.
Yeah.
ADHD. I can't focus. I can't bring my attention anywhere because my mind is too scattered. It's too devastated.
Yeah.
My nervous system doesn't let me sleep, so I'm constantly anxious and fearful. The physical body of a widow, when you look at us, we're like this. We're clenching. Our heart is definitely closed off. Our shoulders are coming in,
Yeah.
right? And we're not
That nervous
sleeping.
system is protecting itself.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. Is I'm hiding.
Yeah.
I'm in my shell. So it takes a lot of work to rebuild the body and remove the physical grief from the body and how it impacts. There's
Yeah.
a certain thing called muscle armoring where you just get really tight, you just get really tensed up, and it's hard to work through.
Yeah, so all these things can just happen to people that are all normal things to happen too. You know what I mean? But then how do you, when you recognize these things, did you have a hard time like finding help with people or saying, and how they treated you, or maybe just brushing it off to something else versus like true responses from grief?
Nobody knows how to deal with it. There's no handbook, there's no checkbook, there's no way to say, here's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
So we're not really doing it at all. So it would be nice to have a program that helped with that. to help support that, because we look at the mental. So you go to talk therapy, you do EMDR, you do all sorts of hypnotherapy, right? Those have been also very hugely helpful as well, is to go through those experiences with hypnotherapy. So there's tons of opportunities to get what you need if you know what it is you can do.
Right.
So
And then for all levels of stuff.
Right. And so, this is complicated grief, and this grief, it doesn't just happen to widows, but it happens to all of us. Grief is, losing a job, losing a pet, losing the way things used to be.
Yeah, for sure.
And we're grieving the way it used to be, and it results in it presents itself like depression or anxiety, but truly we're still just, we're grieving. We're grieving.
Yeah. And so tell us about how you found then yoga.
Well, I was so fortunate. It came through talk therapy. So we moved to Waxahachie with my brother and sister-in-law for the last 6 months of my husband's life because I really needed help.
Yeah.
And so I drove from Waxahachie to Highland Park. For whatever reason, I chose a talk therapist in Highland Park, and it was fabulous. Thursdays were all about me. I had 90 minutes to just kind of unplug, and he recommended yoga. And he said, well, Kirsten, have you ever done yoga? And I said, look at me. I've been doing yoga since I was 19 years old. I mean, come on. But I used yoga as a physical modality, not a type of medicine. And he said, no, have you ever done real yoga? I said, well, let's try this then. So then I would begin to couple my Thursdays. I would do yoga therapy for 90 minutes and then roll right into my talk therapy. And it was the yoga therapy that allowed me to calm my mind and to settle, even if it was legs up the wall, to recover and to be prepared to process those huge emotions that I was having while my husband was dying.
Yeah.
And so after he passed, I went full time into my own yoga therapy recovery. And at the time, my yoga therapist told me, he said, I've taught you everything I can teach you. You need to go meet my teacher. And so that's when I flew to Philadelphia and met Rod Stryker for the first time. And that was such a powerful weekend because I really resonated with the words, and I came up to him after class. And what I didn't know is I went straight from being a therapy client to the Ptsd of yoga. I didn't know I was talking to such a master, and I came up after class and I said, Yoga Rupa, and I told him my story, and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, Kirsten, the divine loves us so much that she doesn't want to see us stagnate.
Wow.
So she gives us these challenges to help us find out who we truly are.
Wow.
And I said, I'm signed up. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So I just continued that journey.
And what a nice message of hope, too.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah. It's hard to say, oh, your husband died. Well, it's all perfect. It's all going to work out in the end.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all for the best. Eventually, you'll see the best in it. It's hard to hear that.
Yeah. But that was just phrased so nicely, not like a, good luck,
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Yeah, so it was beautiful. So I felt like I was at home. And so every training that he had, I continued to utilize my opportunity with life insurance and my time off to take all of his trainings as quickly as I could. And it really accelerated my recovery and my growth. And I was super fortunate because he is such a thorough teacher that I learned about Ayurveda, which is truly the science of rejuvenation. Yeah. So it was exactly what I needed to teach me how to eat, what to eat, how to soothe my own nervous system through oil massages, the right types of herbs for my mind. There's actually herbs for that are all natural, that help you.
And you can tell the difference as you're doing all these things in your body and in your mind.
So much so. And as a Para Yoga Master student, you keep a quarterly diary. So you keep track of what you're doing and what you're practicing and how it makes you feel. So it helps you become a yoga scientist, and now you know how these modalities work on you and others.
Wow.
So when I'm teaching now, people will say to me, how do you know all these things? It's like you know everything. Well, yeah, because I've tried it on myself first.
Yeah, and how nice too, because we know memory, very fallible, can forget things, minutes later, but to write down and to really see, because each person is different, what's going on with yourself and how it changed. I mean, what a gift.
And as a self-practitioner and a self-healer, I know how I feel, and I'll go back and say, oh, what practice was it that made me feel so good? Let me go back and look at that, because that's what I need again.
Yeah.
And then I just go back to my recordings from my trainings and give myself my medicine and just keep going.
I love that. I love that. So, yeah.
So I got lucky.
Yeah, very good. Where do we want to go from here on this? Yeah.
Well, there's people who are experiencing this major grief and hopelessness, right? And who am I now? I would say that this therapeutic yoga therapy, and especially para yoga, has the program, has a methodology. We think about the 4 desires, the book by Rod Stryker, and we have a workshop coming up with Lisa Hafner about the 4 desires and figuring out who you are, why you're here, and how to accomplish your goals. And as someone who's in a new experience of a new life as a widow, who am I and why am I here and what am I going to do now?
Right?
So
Because everything's changed.
Everything's changed.
Yeah.
I'm not a wife anymore, right? Because that had different rules.
Yeah.
I'm something else now. I don't know what that looks like. The rug's been pulled out from under me. So finding a good yoga therapist, finding someone in para yoga, reaching out to me, I can, as a holistic health concierge, I can help you find, the right practitioner, the right teacher, the right healer for you.
Right. And then do you think or did you do any support groups or anything else like that? Or what do you think about
So
stuff
much
like
support
that? Yeah.
groups. So, the internet was a really good resource. So I followed at the time One Fit Widow because it was really helping me through the fitness side because I was a gym rat when I was a corporate person. That's what I did. And so that was really nice to help me, just give me something to do that I was familiar with. But I found the Widow's Journey. And that was a group of women here in Dallas that meet in Turtle Creek once a month. And who else knows the issues other than another group of widows?
Right.
And so we talk about the common things, about how to do background checks on people. If you need a handyman, I have one I trust, because that's what we're missing. I just need a handyman sometimes, right? This is broken, come fix it.
Yeah.
I lost my husband. It helps you understand what to do with the finances, what to do with the estate, how to find the help that you're needing. And we have social circles too, because now you have to find new friends.
Right.
So let's all go to dinner, let's all go to theater, I think we did belly dancing last month. Let's learn how to arrange flowers together. Let's have a new circle, a new community, a new, it's not therapy, it's just more community, it's more support.
Yeah, and community is so important.
So, and you can't do this by yourself, and when you try, it gets really, really lonely.
Yeah, and we are social beings, and also studies show what is the biggest killer is also loneliness too.
Right.
With that.
Right, so having
so-
support, accountability, someone to talk to, someone who gets it. Having a widow sister, we call each other whisters, because this widow word is so scary.
I like a whister
A
better.
whister, so our
Sounds
whisters.
way cooler.
Yeah, so it's nice to have a mentor.
Yeah.
So as a 5-year widow, we know widows are going to happen, right? If your husband's terminally ill, you're about to get welcomed to our club.
Right.
So reach out to us now. We're holding our hand out to you now.
What a good idea that if you know, if you have somebody in that situation where you know that death is coming and it's inevitable, to get that support on the back end, because you might not feel it like when you're down in it. You know what I mean?
Well, it's good to have help. It's good to know somebody who's been there too,
Right.
And
For
so
sure.
pre-grieving happens. And so if you know you're going to join the club, come join the club and we'll help you get through that next step. And when you're ready, you can come join the widow meetings and the social circles.
I love that.
And as a 5-year widow, it's nice to have a 10-year widow who also maybe went through my same type of loss, with brain cancer from my husband, to say, well, what's the next 5 years look like? Because here's what the first 5 years look like.
Yeah.
And it was ugly.
Yeah. What was what would you say is the most challenging thing during those first couple years, that you navigated?
Finding the resources that I needed to help keep me safe. A therapist I can trust, a handyman I can trust, because again, people are out there and they will take advantage of you, and your guard is really down and your mind is not working properly. So
Yeah.
finding trusted resources, finding new friends, learning how to feed myself again. How do you cook for one?
Yeah.
So it was really just finding the resources to help me reconfigure this new life and know what that's like, because all routine was gone. You have to set a new routine.
Yeah. And now, would you say now, so being 5 years, out from this, how has your life changed in what ways, and what do you see as people try to find I can't control this situation that happened. It has. But what thing do you think you're doing now that you would not have done, or some space in your life had this been not part of your journey?
Well, I believe in Dharma. I believe in destiny. Not so much destiny as purpose in life, right? And so I was an executive working on the 10th floor, 40, 60, 80-hour weeks, working really hard so we could take amazing vacations. And it was amazing, and it was fabulous, and it was high speed, and it was awesome. I traveled all around the globe. But that wasn't what I was meant to do. People at work would tell me, Kirsten, you should be a teacher. I'd say, doesn't make enough money. Time is money, and there's never enough of both. Walk with me. I would have my clipboard. Walk with me. Let's have a meeting.
Wow.
Right? This was me. That wasn't the true me. Right? Now I'm a teacher. Now I can use my voice to help others find their own healing, their own path for transformation. I can share with others through articles and just my own knowledge and experience how we can obviously do this a better way, right? There's a better way to live. And so I'm a teacher, and I would not have been the teacher I am today if I hadn't lost everything and had that nervous breakdown to take me down to my rawest, tiniest nerve to say, you're not that. You are so not that. You're something completely different now. Go figure that out.
Yeah.
She loves us so much. She doesn't want to see us stagnate, and I was stagnating.
Yeah. Okay, now I want to ask a question. I wonder if people listening right now is like, what's like happiness level or finding love again and things like that? What's all that like? You know, and how does one navigate this? And we sort of talked about before, the person that it's not like you, and not to say that people don't have difficulties when they get divorced, of somebody that maybe they love and things go sideways or whatever it is, but different because it's sort of choicey there.
Sure.
Versus like a complete non-choice.
Right. So think about a widow in her 20s. She's going to want to date. Widow in her 30s, in her career, she just had kids. Right? A widow like me in her 40s, almost her 50s, right? There's a different dating category there. So finding happiness within first, and then finding love. And it is okay to find love again. And everyone's encouraging me, oh, you'll find someone else. You're still young, you'll find someone. That's not the right thing to say. At our own time, at our own speed, but it is possible to find love again because they do it all the time. But I got to tell you, it takes a special person to love a widow, because widows didn't choose to lose their husband.
Yeah.
They lost the love of their life. And you're always going to love that person. And you might even have a picture of that person in your house when your new husband comes home. And how is that husband going to deal with that? So again, it takes a special person to be strong enough and courageous enough to date a widow.
Yeah, because you're not competing with a dead person. It's just a part of their life. And then you can have another part of your life as well.
Right.
You know.
Right. And you can't tell a widow, well, that card's over. You can't play that card anymore.
Yeah. Non-empathetic there.
Not at all.
Yeah.
You know, you'll get over it. You know, no, I lost someone I truly, totally loved.
Oh, yeah. And what a bad thing to say to anybody who's lost somebody is that you'll get over it. Yeah.
You'll learn to love
Don't
again.
say that.
That's not recommended. Not recommended. But it is possible. It is possible. It'll take time. You know, you want to heal yourself before you try to move on.
Yeah. Otherwise, more likely to get into some situation when you're not right and maybe you're just trying to fulfill a need, is that's when these other people can kind of come in and see vulnerability.
Correct. So just take your time and hang out with your widow sisters, hang out with your wisters, and get the confidence and the love and the community that you need to feel safe, because we're all here. They're everywhere. Everyone knows a widow. I can guarantee it. Widows span, they don't care about your finances. They don't care about your ethnicity. They don't care about your sexual preference. They don't care about any of those things. They'll come and get you.
That's nice. A very inclusive group.
Very inclusive. We welcome everyone. You know, the club that no one wants to be part of, and yet so many people are. Everyone knows a widow.
Yeah. And they're not all old ladies.
They're not all old ladies.
All old ladies.
Yeah, I want to get a t-shirt that says, I'm a widow. I want to get a t-shirt that says Widow Yogi. You know, I want to have that conversation. Widows shouldn't be scary.
Right?
Widows are strong women too.
That just had a different experience in life. And really that's so true. It's just to like know that, because I know I have like, I just still have like a apprehension a little bit around like death stuff, but like to engage a little bit more to get less apprehensive, more comfortable with things, you know. And I do think the more we dive into scary things, and then really like it's just a conversation, like I'm not jumping off a building,
Right.
you know,
Right.
is to do that and to understand people a little bit more.
We're all actively dying right now. We are all going to die. No matter how hard we try not to, it's going to happen. And so it's nothing to be scared of.
Yeah.
It's nothing to run away from. It's nothing, you know, we have such a beautiful birth process of, you know, baby showers, parties,
Yeah.
people coming to see you. And then when somebody dies, we're just, don't bring your kids to the funeral, just let's make that happen and get over with.
Right. Versus the same thing of the, and now I have seen a little bit more people doing celebration of life and making it more like about, and then you're like, yeah, like, you know what I mean? I even think about that too. I'm like, I don't want everybody to be all like sad, like, let's do something fun, if you could direct your own thing, but to even just talk about it.
If you could direct your own thing.
Yeah.
If you could plan your own funeral, then your loved ones wouldn't have to.
I want to be a firecracker.
I want to donate
So I can
my
go out
body
with
to
a bang.
science. Yeah, there you go. And there's actually, we talk about that in our groups. What do you do with those ashes?
Yeah.
What do you do? You could put your loved one in a tree now.
Right? You can be coral. You can be like all kinds of things.
So these are conversations we shouldn't shy from.
Right? Because you're right. All going to die. Every single person. You don't know when. Or, well, maybe some people get, but you really don't know when.
Right.
You know what I mean? Wow.
Right.
I love having this conversation. What else is good? Do we cover it all with the widow stuff? Is there more we want to talk about?
Well, just
Check your notes.
let me check my notes. Just the awareness of the health and the well-being of those people.
And to know that it's normal to have these things happen.
Oh, absolutely. You have permission to flounder.
Yeah.
You have permission to be sad. You have permission to be depressed, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. You have permission to feel your feelings and not run from them. You have permission to cry at the grocery store and the bank.
Yeah.
You can cry anywhere you want to because it's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
You have permission to feel this, and you don't have to hide, and you don't have to apologize at all to anyone.
I love that. You don't have to apologize at all.
If it makes them uncomfortable, it says more about them than it does about you.
Right. And even though it's probably not even personal with that person too, like maybe people just don't know, but now that you've heard this podcast, we're telling you what to say and do, tips to also help the person who is grieving. You know what I mean? It's a person in need, and to seek help, because you cannot just, cannot do this all alone.
And
You
you
really
shouldn't
do
have
need,
to.
and you shouldn't have to. You really need people and support. And even if you don't have, let's say you don't have family, or in your case, everybody was all occupied with other troubles of their own, you can find a group, find some therapy. And then, so if somebody is listening and wanting to find you, because I know you have just lots of amazing stuff going on, and Kirsten is a super joy and just a wonderful yogi and super awesome too. I know her personally, but yeah, tell us about what all you've got coming on.
Wow, so I'm the owner of Living Yoga Dallas, and I purchased that company shortly after my husband died because yoga was so instrumental to me, and I had a real difficult time finding my yoga.
Yeah.
Not the fitness yoga, not the fun yoga, not the community yoga, but the yoga as medicine. And so this company helps you do that. It highlights the studios and the teachers and the events that help you heal and transform, help you find who you are, and really live that yogic lifestyle. Truly, it's living yoga, right? How do we do that? And then I'm also the founder and owner of Prani Life Consulting. And so this is how I take my knowledge in group classes and workshops, as well as individual clients, and just make those recommendations and provide those practices and even the journaling exercises to help you move past and through from grief to growth, so you can thrive again in any stage.
Awesome. And not just death grief, but any kind of change you can help people with, like, because I really do. I mean, yoga is just essential for any kind of trauma. And trauma it's not just death or loss or PTSD or any of these other kind of things. It's just is that.
Yeah.
It just is that thing.
We pretty much all have a little bit of anxiety because guess what? We live in this day and age in this place. So we're all a little bit anxious.
Right.
So that's what the yoga helps with. And this is what people say, what kind of yoga was that? Because I've never done that kind of yoga before. There was chanting and there was strange things in there.
And anybody can do it.
Anybody can do it.
Yeah.
In fact, I even do chair yoga. You can lay down and do my type of yoga and never get up off the floor. People with MS, people who just recovering from a stroke can do this type of yoga.
Yeah, and it's just, and scientifically proven benefits. And then you'll know within yourself. I know yoga has really changed the way I feel about a lot of things, and it's been so lovely. It's so lovely.
So that's kind of what I'm trying to do now. I've just started programming at a church in Highland Park. So as we know, the church economy and industry is not like it used to be, and so a lot of churches are opening their doors up to wellness programming, and so I've just opened up a studio at a church in Highland Park, Central Christian Church.
Nice.
And so we're seeing clients and doing classes out there and just accepting everybody. We've got a women's circle this weekend, and so we all get together and we heal. It's a very nice, safe space to be in.
I love it. And you are just such a bright light, wonderful person since I met you. And so indeed, I will verify. Not that I'm the authority to say this would be your calling, but just so wonderful, and just how many people that you can help. And especially, I think, when anybody's been through something just rough, the obligation, I think, to help others, or at least that's what I feel like, man, that sucked. Like, I don't want anybody else to feel like, if you don't have, it still might suck, but not that level of suckage. Here are things that you can help you get out of that suckage, to move through it.
Yeah, and just here's what's worked for me. Let me show you what's helped for me, because
Try it.
I've done it all.
Yeah.
I've gone through the entire list of every healing modality you can think of. So I can speak with direct experience of how it worked for me or it didn't.
Yeah, that's nice, and that's what you got to do. Is you just got to try. And see
It's
what
not
works.
just one thing, right? It's
For
all
sure.
things, yeah.
It's everything. You got to do the mind, the body, the stuff for the body that does the mind, the community.
Right.
I love it. Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
having this wonderful conversation that I don't think anybody's having. And so if you know, or if you are a widow, they're not scary. They're people who've had an experience, and now you know what to say and what you can do, even if it's been years past. And there is help. And I'm going to put all the information on Kirsten in the show notes so you can know where to find her, to get in contact with her, tell your friends. And thank you again for sharing all that you know.
Thank you for having me today.
You're so welcome.
I appreciate it.
And for all of you listening, you know that there is always another way.